Republican running for the state Senate seat there is a man by the name of Juan Pablo Segura, running against Democrat Russet Perry. And Juan Pablo joins us now. Hello, Juan Pablo. Good to have you with us.
Hey, Vince. How are you? Thanks for having me on. Excited
oh, man, I'm doing
on.
great. Go ahead, sir. How's the campaign going?
It's going great. We're really focused on getting out the vote. The whole Republican Party is united around focusing on getting folks out for the early vote. We got to bank votes early. We never know what's going to happen on Election Day. And I can't tell you how strategically important it is for folks to get out and early vote. We still have some time till 5 o'clock here in Loudoun County and Fauquier. And then tomorrow the polls are going to be open in, I believe, 4 different locations across Loudoun County for early voting. And so I can't stress enough, if we vote early, we will win and we will get a conservative majority back in Richmond, and we've got to get it done.
Yeah, that's for sure. That'd be a big deal. So how is it going? I keep seeing these reports that there's some positive numbers on Republican turnout in the early vote. Is there any way to make sense of it?
Yeah, so what's awesome is the base is showing up. I get early vote updates every day, Vince. So we're tracking this really closely, and it looks like Republicans, we're at the governor's level right now back in 2021. And so we've got the momentum. We've talked a lot about this on a couple different spots. The Democratic Party here in Virginia has no message. All they're trying to do is scare people into voting against Republicans. Republicans have a message. We want to make Virginia the best place to live, work, and raise a family. And we really have the momentum on the ground. We're doing early vote parties with Latinos, Pakistanis, the minority communities that once voted for Democrats. They're rebelling against the Democratic Party because the Democrats have done nothing for these communities, and they're switching Republicans. So we've got all the momentum, but we got to push this thing till the finish line.
One of the critical things that is causing Democrats to either stay home or switch to Republican is the crime issue. Talk about crime in the 31st District and in Virginia, and how you plan on tackling that as a senator for the state.
Well, I mean, it's one of the top issues I hear. I've knocked thousands of doors across the district. The biggest challenge we have in Loudoun County is we have a radical leftist Commonwealth's attorney. Her name is Buddha Bibrai, who chooses to not enforce the law, whether it's hit and runs, not prosecuting, evading the police. And my opponent, she actually was one of Buddha's top lieutenants. And so they let domestic violence offenders off, no bail, that then kind of go back and perform even worse crimes in the community, murderers, gang members. And so, we're up against quite a bit here of folks that don't believe in enforcing the law. My opponent's been endorsed by more than 8 groups that have publicly called to defund the police. I will always back law enforcement. I'm going to make sure our law enforcement here in Virginia has the tools they need to be successful. And so I think that's a massive, stark difference between myself and my opponent. And I'm hearing about it all the time on the trail.
Is it true that Buddha Bibrai was hassling your campaign recently because you were handing out chicken sandwiches to people to get a bite to eat?
Well, Vince, listen to this. So last Thursday we've done multiple early vote parties. We hadn't heard any complaints. We were handing out free Chick-fil-A to anyone, regardless if you had voted or not.
Man, that's a good
we
sandwich.
do an early vote. Yeah, it's a great sandwich. We do an early vote party with mariachis and a taco truck. We get more than 250 Latinos to vote. More than 100 of those 250 Latinos had never voted before, ever, and they voted Republican. And so all of a sudden, the next day, I get a cease and desist letter from Buddha Bibrai because guess what? Minorities are no longer voting Democrat, and they're flipping to Republican. And so they're trying to silence us. They're trying to silence minorities in Loudoun County, disenfranchised Latino voters. She told me, don't do another party. Guess what I did, Vince? I did another party the next day, and she didn't do anything about it. So we're not going to be stopped. We're not going to be silenced. And we're going to win this thing, but with a message of hope and success always together.
By the way, even if you were committing a crime, she wouldn't prosecute it. It's not really her thing. She doesn't go after crimes.
The current state senator, Joe Vogel, who's retiring and endorsed me, she sent Buddha, she's a lawyer, sent Buddha a letter and said, hey, why don't you stop going after Latinos and actually go after the criminals since you're not doing that? So, so there's definitely been a lot of talk of that.
Isn't it wild? It's just the craziest thing. Tell me, what are Republicans going to do if they do capture the Senate in Virginia?
Well, I mean, we're all rallied around common sense. We want to make sure that we empower parents. I don't know, Vince, if you've talked about this on the show. I know a lot of folks are starting to talk about this. Just earlier this week, it was released that multiple students in my district at Parkview High School had overdosed on fentanyl. And the Loudoun County School Board, radical leftist-controlled school board, decided to hide that news from the parents of that community. Many of them are Latinos. And so you have a constant undermining of parental rights, of just parents knowing what's happening in the schools, accountability, transparency. At every turn here in Loudoun County, we're gonna make sure we pass common sense legislation when we're down in Richmond. One of the first bills that I'm going to propose as your next state senator is a law that would require administrators in schools to notify parents within 24 hours if a major event happened in the schools, like a fentanyl overdose. So we're hearing a lot about these challenges that we have. Folks are struggling with the cost of living.
Yeah.
We had a $5 billion tax surplus. Republicans wanted to refund that money back to taxpayers. Democrats didn't let us do it in the radical leftist-controlled state Senate.
So,
and we've got to prosecute criminals, and so we're going to make sure we do that as well.
Juan Pablo, one of the things that's happening right now in Virginia with the schools, there's a lot happening with the schools, of course, is that, the governor's office will come out with, model policies or some expectation for how the schools are supposed to conduct themselves with regards to the kids. And then some of the more left-wing school districts are just ignoring them. They're just saying, up yours, we're not doing that. In fact, we're going to keep letting boys in the girls' room and vice versa. Is it your plan, should Republicans become in control of the state Senate, and at least as far as your contributions go, to get control of the school system and to make it so that, hey, we're going to lay it out, we're going to make it a law, and this is not going to be, up to these school systems anymore to make it up as they go along?
Well, I'll tell you, Vince, when it comes to just core important issues that are happening in families' lives, we're going to pass important legislation to make sure that, again, for example, parents are notified when there's a drug overdose in a school. A law that was struck down by the radical leftist-controlled state Senate in Richmond this past year was a law called Sage's Law that would have required schools to notify parents if one of their children was suicidal, or suicidal ideation. The radical leftist-controlled state Senate blocked that, which I still don't understand. And so it's laws like those that we're going to pass, make sure that parents understand what's happening in the schools. These school boards, they also have to be consistent. In Loudoun County, back in 2019, the school board adopted the model policies of Governor Northam because they said that they had to. There was no choice. All of a sudden, Governor Youngkin comes out with new model policies, and now the school board says, well, I don't know if we're going to do that.
Yep.
They're hypocrites here in Loudoun County, and we can't stand for it. And we're going to make sure we have consistency in the laws that we pass. Yeah,
and they need to, the whole point of the school system should be to respect and care for the children and educate them. And they're working against that. And I'd really love to see the state legislature get control of these schools. Another piece of this in terms of schools, we get a lot of listeners all the time, Juan Pablo, who are asking us about school choice and the appetite for it in Richmond. Do you support a full-blown school choice program to include allowing people to take money with them to choose the school that would be best for their kids, and that includes allowing kids to have access to that money should they go to a private school rather than a public school?
Well, Vince, I think this is an important question. My background has been as an entrepreneur, as an innovator in healthcare, a very broken and dysfunctional part of the economy, right, that we've got to fix problems in healthcare. Yeah. And I want to bring that same approach to the educational system. We need innovation in our school system right now, particularly if you have a school board that is refusing to prioritize excellence in raising standards in the schools. I'm going to share with you, Vince, I was talking to a reading specialist in one of the Loudoun County high schools. She shared with me that in one of the high schools, 164 high schoolers are reading at a K through fourth grade reading level. That's unacceptable. And so one of the things that I'm going to push when in Richmond is absolutely innovation in how Well, we send our kids to school, whether that's through charter schools or lab schools, which has been a big push for the governor,
Yes.
or education savings accounts. We're going to consider everything, but we're going to introduce a shot of innovation to make sure that we empower parents and students get the best possible education.
Can you talk a little bit more about your opponent, Democrat Russid Perry? You're both, neither of you are incumbents. You're both running for the seat. What of her? What would be the cost of her becoming the new state senator for the 31st district?
Well, I mean, the question that we all have to consider is, do we want to be more safe or less safe in our communities? Like I mentioned earlier, my opponent has been endorsed. She's actually celebrated endorsements by more than 8 groups that have publicly called to defund the police. That's unacceptable. She's let gang members, domestic violence offenders out on the streets with no bail. And so that's not something that I support. I'm going to fund law enforcement. I'm going to make sure that we're safe, that the police has the tools that they need to make sure that we're safe. And I'm also going to make sure that we empower parents. My opponent called the parental rights movement an evangelical fringe movement. That's just a slap in the face to every parent out here in Virginia. The parental rights movement, parental rights are God-given, and every parent has the right to be involved in their child's education, just like every child has the right to have their parents involved in their education.
Yeah, that's for sure. All right. Well, Republican Juan Pablo Segura, man, is running in Senate District 31 in Virginia. And Juan Pablo, if people want to find out more about your campaign or information on, where their polling place is, where should they go?
Yeah, so it's actually the first thing you'll see on my website, Segura4FORVA.com. You'll find your polling location, the early vote locations. Again, if you guys can consider early voting, bank in the votes so that you can then get 5, 10 of your friends to go vote on Election Day. That's how we win this thing.
All right, Juan Pablo Segura, thank you so much for your time today. Best of luck in this campaign as it winds its way to the end. Thank you, sir.